want us scared and you want us stunk. You want us shot and you want us fought in every way. You want our minds, you want our time, you want us framed up in your crime. I hope you know that it's time to go, and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. You're just liars, cheats and crooks, change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You're just liars, cheats and crooks, change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks, change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. La 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause you see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies.
Oh my goodness. Week 4, I guess. So week 4, right?
I believe so.
Well, because it would be week 3, but we had the special edition. But I think for continuity, we should count the special editions, even though we don't number them, because they're special and to be part of the series. So welcome to episode 4. How are you doing today?
Yeah, welcome, everybody. Troy, your voice actually isn't so clear. There's a lot of background noise.
Oh, hello? Can you hear me?
That's better.
Oh, there we go. Substack is not as clean as other things. How are you doing? Are you feeling better after your harrowing escape from the asylums of traffic hell? I don't know.
I know. I've been saying with my, business pitches, I've surpassed death 4 times. I think I'm gonna add a 5th one now.
Oh,
Because guys, I have a brittle bone disease. And I've broken bones in the past from just sneezing, from just coughing. And a car hit me. It dragged me and hit me into another car. And then I hit a pole because the brakes stopped working. And thank God, miraculously, I didn't break anything. So yeah, on that respect and regard, I'm good, thank God. Nothing broke, and yeah, just the most challenging thing right now for me is being without a car. and that's mentally kind of messing with me. But I'm
You
so
mean
grateful.
you can't just go pick one up from the dealership or rent one from Hertz? What's the problem?
No, surprisingly not. I don't know why. I
They
mean,
don't keep those stocked? I don't understand.
no, and my insurance has like coverage for when these things happen to where I could get a rental car and it's covered, but it's a non-wheelchair accessible one, and they're not going to cover the wheelchair accessible ones. So that
How is
policy,
that fair? Wait. You're telling me that you've been paying for insurance on a car that's wheelchair accessible and they don't cover wheelchair accessible rentals? And
no,
do they cover you having a full-time driver to drive you around or as much transportation as you need?
no. They said to me though, if we don't resolve this for you in time, we'll compensate you later for not, providing you with what you need at that time. Which didn't make sense, but I guess because it's on the policy, that coverage, um, that's why they're like, oh, we will compensate. But it's like, for what? I need it now. I need to be driven with a proper car now.
You know, I'm gonna be, and I'm actually calling in from Washington. This is the first time Renahi and I have been in the same state during this thing. And next week, hopefully, we'll just do it live, sitting right next to each other. But
Yeah.
I am actually going to be in Seattle here for 10 days. So I don't. I have taken all the seats out of my Dodge Caravan. And so if I took all the things out of the Dodge Caravan, we could potentially buy a ramp and drive you right into the Dodge Caravan, and there's hooks. I think then I would just attach you to the attach your wheelchair, right? Like we could get like ratchet straps. Is that how this works? I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I'm actually asking. I'm super curious how the insurance company expects you to be to get somebody else, or is it just hire paratransit or somebody like that?
No, they just told me, just don't attempt to get anything.
Well, why don't we go and I wonder if we could rent a ramp and then you could hire me as your full time driver for the 2 weeks that I'm there, and we will just submit them a $10,000 bill for my time. I mean, it takes time. We had to buy materials, this and that, and then say, okay, since you didn't get my stuff, I hired somebody to drive all the way up here from California to drive me around for 2 weeks, and here's what it costs.
There you go.
And
Great plan.
who is this amazing insurance that has no coverage? So covers you in the car, but doesn't have an actual contingency for if you happen to get in a wreck.
Yeah, it's State Farm.
State Farm. Oh man, State Farm always says that they are so amazing at claims that you never have to worry about anything, and they're going to cover everything.
Yeah.
How, well, it sounds like State Farm also has local, local, local establishments, right? So you could drive up on a State Farm. You could drive up from Jake from State Farm, right? We can just go find
Hmm.
one of those red vested little guys and make them talk to us in person, right? We could do a walk the walk podcast live.
Yeah. You know,
All
the
right.
way you were
So
describing, just to quickly add, the way you were describing how I can get in your car, that's how my family did it before we got a wheelchair accessible car. We just had a
yeah.
regular van and we removed the middle seats, and then we had a portable ramp that you could take around, and that's how I would get in.
I'm literally going to be there on the 15th, and I am happy to drive you around and take you to all your appointments and do whatever you need to do to make sure we
Thank
get this. And yeah, yeah, and we just need to come up with a portable ramp. I'm not. I don't. I'm not
we
sure I'm
have
strong enough to lift you with the chair.
some.
It looks
um,
heavy. It looks heavy.
very
You
heavy.
look- you you look light. It looks heavy.
I am very light.
What'd be funny is when you get your when you get your driver's license, you say, "Well, I'm 4'10", but 450 pounds or something like that because you come in the
I know
wheelchair."
that is so funny. You know, my car steering wheel is not a regular size. Is because it's big. Like I'm the same size kind of as the steering wheel to an extent, and so that's why my steering wheel is like
It's like a video game.
smaller.
It's like Mario Kart, right? Like, it,
Yeah,
don't you just get it from the Nintendo Wii, right? You can buy the little.
yeah. There you go. My next one.
It kind of reminds me of when they were training people for. Um, it was in the submarines. They had this overly complicated setup. They had spent millions of dollars on how to operate the periscopes on a submarine, right? Because you got to get it to the right depth, to get this and this, and then at some point, people were having trouble learning it, and they literally put in a PlayStation controller, and they all of a sudden had perfect operation of the periscope because all the people came pre-trained. Weirdly enough, all the yeah. So I think you could get like like a Wii thing or something like that. So yeah. So speaking of that, I think that goes into one of the first things. So I guess State Farm is on our hit list today. For State Farm, why do you cover people when you do not have a solution for if they actually get in an accident? I don't know if this is news to State Farm, but people actually do get in accidents and their car is inoperable and they rely on their insurance to help them get around. Could you imagine if you had like a regular job and like, what is it for you to take like a taxi, so to speak? I think they actually call them handy taxis, which it sounds offensive, but is that what they call them, right? Or
Not sure.
paratransit.
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know if that's yeah. I know they called it. There was a paratransit in California, and the reason I knew that is they were literally right down the road from my Verizon store. So I was right down the road from the paratransit and the deaf school. So as I was renting a Verizon store, which kind of works for me because I'm obviously pretty comfortable with these things. But yeah, absolutely, like just drop them off at my store. We got them. We're wheelchair accessible. I had an employee who had who spoke sign language actually that I had purposely make sure it kept around. And then Verizon had like you could get your name badge with the Si habla español, and they didn't have that in the name badges I could order, so I just went and bought the little hand sticker. We could do that, and I trained all my employees. We were bilingual with Spanish because it was 40% Spanish, and then made sure that I talked to them all about people that are differently able coming in, and specifically told everybody to send, instead of having them write on a piece of paper or a tablet or however it was, or speak through their interpreter, I'm like, bring them in to see Johnny, and you can create a lot of actual business from just being accessible to your local community. And so we were dominating sales, and some of it was, I don't know, I had an amazing staff, we were aggressive, we did sales, but also you start to ingrain yourself into the business. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Roberto has been talking about with Codex. I don't know if you saw that he's changing that a little bit to
Yeah.
instead of like, here's where you're missing, it's here's the opportunity you're missing, here's how much business you're actually missing. And so so State Farm, Shame on you. You should. You
Yeah.
should definitely, if you're going to take an auto policy for somebody, then you have to have either just turn it down and say, hey, we don't have the ability to serve that, and let the market serve it, but don't take the policy when you can't actually deliver that stuff. So I think that goes next into the thing you wanted to cover. We actually forgot to cover it on episode 2, so we're recycling it. It's a little bit out of the headlines, but I think it's something that's very we're talking about, and I think it fits the topic really well because you know last time I wrecked a car, I was driving a BMW 650 and I rolled it down a 30-foot embankment, and all of us jumped out of there and we're like, it landed shiny side up, luckily, after rolling a whole bunch of times. And I praised the BMW for how like it exploded into airbags. There were airbags everywhere. Like, I just kind of leaned into the airbag, get loose. I have hypermobility, so it allowed me to flop around, no big deal. And nobody was injured. You would have been devastatedly hurt. And in a rolling off a 30-foot embankment and flipping 3 or 4 times, I'm sure you wouldn't have and even if you weren't seriously hurt, getting out of a car that could potentially explode with the, I don't know, hopefully somebody can point it out, or they get there quick. But what you wanted to talk about happened on an airline, and maybe you can shed some light on us and, some of us that are that aren't in your situation on how dangerous even a trip and fall can be, or in that situation, exactly what happened, because I'm not completely sure on what happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy how sensitive certain lives are, and for one individual's life, it's nothing, but for another, it's literally life or death. And traveling, of course, in an airplane, that's a potential danger, right? But like just getting on to an airplane, that's nothing to an able-bodied person. But for somebody like me, who's differently able, and a lot of other differently able people, that in and of itself is dangerous. To the extent that we rely on other people and we can't take our electric wheelchair inside the airplane and we have to transfer, and then there's this aisle seat transfer that's super thin, like literally so thin. The cushion is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's barely a proper cushion, and the footrest is so tiny in width and length as well. And they expect us to sit on it while we go through the aisles within the airplane. But anyways, so there was this man, I forgot his name, but he was traveling and he had a condition that caused him to have the inability to move himself. He was some kind of um, paralyzed type of condition to where he wasn't fully able to move his body freely the way he would like. People had him move certain body parts of his and obviously transfer him. He couldn't do it alone. But he was trying to get on an airplane. And Troy, which one was it again? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Allegiant, which pains
And
me. Well, I guess it's perfect that I'm wearing Raiders today, because I was thinking, why is that guy so feisty? I'm a Raider fan. That should explain it all. But unfortunately, Allegiant is is the name of our stadium. But yes, it is Allegiant.
Yeah, Allegiant Airlines, and this differently abled man who has a physical condition to where he can't move his own body, was gonna get on the Allegiant airplane, right? And they were gonna transfer him from his wheelchair to the tiny aisle, makeshift seat. It's not even like a proper wheelchair, but just this seat with like, 3 tires on it, and they're so small as well. But anyways, I guess an aisle seat, makeshift wheelchair. They were gonna transfer him on to that, and they did. And because he physically can't move himself, he wasn't able to straighten himself out within that seat or make himself comfortable. And so they just set him on there. And the staff of the airplane, or whomever was at the airport assisting him, they forgot to strap him in that aisle seat, makeshift wheelchair, and they pushed him to get him onto the airplane. And while they were pushing him, it caught onto something. I don't know if it was like, like those spacers. Um, is it in the tunnel of the airplane when they're not cracks, but
Was it? Oh, it was in the. Oh, what is that called? The loading the arm that comes out. The Oh man, what is that called?
I
Anyway,
know,
okay. So
but
it's between the plane and the terminal on the on ramp basically.
the terminals, how they have little bumps and like spacers. It's not
Yeah,
like thin a thin
yeah.
floor
It's like
like,
because it extends, so
yeah,
it
yeah.
has like these little transfer things. Yeah,
Those extended parts have little bumps right on
yeah,
the floor. And I
yeah.
guess the aisle seat wheelchair caught one of those and it stopped the aisle seat wheelchair. And the staff didn't strap him in, right? They forgot. And so the individual who was differently abled fell out of the aisle seat chair, fell on his face. The wheelchair then fell on him, and the airline staff fell on him as well.
Oh my goodness.
All on accident, of course. But yeah, after that happened, he he acquired like very major injuries, like um internal bleeding and stuff like that as well. And they rushed him to the hospital, and 15 hours later, he died from that incident. With the weight of the wheelchair on him, then the weight of the airline staff, it crushed his body. And it didn't go into details what exactly the injuries were, but I knew there was like, I read internal bleeding and stuff like that. But yeah, he died uh, in that incident, and it was just a differently able person, guys, trying to get on an airplane. And why did that happen? Because the staff were being careless. They didn't strap him in. And I mean, I don't know. When they were pushing the makeshift aisle seat wheelchair, were they going fast? Because whenever I am in those situations, I tell whomever's with me, can you go slow over these bumps? Like, can you please go slow? Can you do this, that? And I don't know if this man, right, who's differently able with his condition, is able to verbally speak, right? I don't know if that's another part of his condition where he can't, but I mean, I feel like they should know to not go super fast with a wheelchair. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to understand how it happened exactly. Oh. But yeah,
And
unfortunately,
that's, well,
yeah.
my condolences go out to his friends and family, of course. But wow, I mean, I guess the empathy in me also says, could you imagine being the person who did this? You show up to work one day and interact and kill somebody. But so that's that's insane. Do you know which airport this was? Because
Uh,
I guess the blame shares across Allegiant and the airline, right? So
I forgot which one, but I could look it up, guys, and double check and share it before we end the podcast. But
yeah,
yeah,
I would like to. I would like people who are fans, if we have any, yet, to to share this with Allegiant and with the airport. I I swear it was O'Hare, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong because I've done the research for it and it was a couple weeks ago, unfortunately. But I'd like to hear from them. Come on and bring your receipts and tell me like what happened, why it happened, and what you've done to change that. Like how we change that. Like, and it also makes me sad because in our first episode we were talking about sociability, and that's where I think this wouldn't necessarily happen on a train if train travel was more predominant, especially in the United States, and also was billed as a safer way for differently able people to travel. And that was that's what shocked me about sociability when we first talked to them was that this could be huge. I mean, you think about getting around in a car, but now your car is broken, and imagine if you had to travel to California, you could get on a plane, sure, and maybe die, like, but on a train, I think it's I don't know, maybe it'd be more jolting or less jolting, I don't know, but at least you wouldn't have to go into a weird transfer chair and things like that. So
yeah, the transfer chair. I mean, I've been on it, and I felt so uncomfortable, and I honestly felt like I was gonna fall off many times. Like I was holding on to the sides for dear life, like literally, because it was so thin and it wasn't as wide as it should be. And I just don't get it why, guys, but I can't go on an airplane with my wheelchair, Or I mean, with cars, I go into a car with my wheelchair, and people drive with their wheel, like when they're on their wheelchair. I don't. I transfer onto the driver's seat. There's so many differently able people who are wheelchair users. They just stay in their wheelchair and go up to the, steering wheel and drive. But obviously, there are some safety reasons because electric wheelchairs, their batteries are a hazard and they're dangerous to board on to the airplane and stuff like that.
no,
Mm.
but you're not allowed to put them in your checked luggage. I know, like, you can't put batteries in your checked luggage. You have to carry them on because that has to stay in the pressurized cabin. But no, you're actually saying something very real here because I hadn't even thought of it until you mentioned this. Okay, so uh, my former best friend, who is no longer my best friend. I made ChatGPT my best friend. The best friend that was replaced with ChatGPT works for United Airlines. And, and the way they do it to limit the weight on an aircraft, but also, well, maybe you haven't experienced this. As a 6'3" human being, I notice some airlines have more legroom than others, but sometimes in the same airline, in the same aircraft, sometimes there's more legroom than others. Why? Because to save weight, going from place to place, they will take out some of the rows of the seats and then give more leg room to more of the passengers. And then also those rows of seats are all one thing, and you can pluck the whole row out and then expand everything out. They're in tracks on the bottom, and you can slide them and connect them down. So if the airline wanted to, and to make it safer for you to fly on an airline, they could just pluck an entire row out and say it's a small plane. It's only 2 seats. Maybe even make you pay for 2 seats. I don't
Yeah,
know. But imagine you just roll on, you go in there, and almost like we were, you know, halfway joking about using ratchet straps to attach you to the thing, where the seats hook into the floor, in that
mhm.
they could have little hooks, eye hooks, to then attach your seat into the airplane. There's no reason for that transfer thing other than that now they would be inconvenienced because they would have a row of seats sitting in O'Hare when they're trying when the plane gets to San Francisco. But that just means you have an extra row of seats. What, per airport? That is not that hard. And so and then so if the if an airline wanted to take this up, they could end up getting business off of advertising. Hey, do you not want to? Or I challenge Allegiant. Okay, Allegiant, you killed somebody. Okay, how about now you stop messing around and you start working on removing a row of seats and letting somebody like Renati pull their regular wheelchair right into your airplane. And hey, Renati will be the first one to fly on it and give you a gold star stamp of approval. Why not? Let's
Yeah,
let's let's take a tragedy like this and show the actual danger that it is to everybody. I think that's a big thing too. Is we've talked about this in other episodes. Is you go to a plane, you go to a building, and you have to think: Am I going to be able to get on? Am I going to get hurt? Am I going to die? Just literally leaving your house is like a death sentence. And that's something I also brought up. We were talking about my family on the last episode. And what my uncle never understands about, say, when you're a minority, say a Muslim or a Black in this country, every time you leave the house, you could potentially have one of these right wing nuts just decide that you're an enemy of the state or decide to take it out on you. And you kind of have to look over your shoulder at all times. I don't know if you feel that as a Muslim where you live, but I know, and I heard about that a lot you know, after 9/11, and then for Asians after COVID, Blacks in America the entire time, is that fear of just leaving your house could get you killed or hurt or messed with is something that my Uncle Rob and their Johnson County, Kansas people are never going to understand until it happens to them. And so that's where I'm like, you guys need a whole lot of wake up to understand how bad this is. So I had never really thought about the nervousness or the fear or the anxiety that you have just in I know what courage it takes for you to get out of the house. That I understand. Like I know that enough about differently abled people, and like so many of them become hermits in their house. So the fact that you get out and you do things and you're a CEO of your own company, I know what courage that is. It warms my heart just to do it. But
yeah,
just that. But I never thought about that anxiety of going to a building and that fear of, are there going to be stairs? Am I going to be able to even get where I'm going? I'm going to spend all this energy and basically risk my life to get there. And am even going to be able to get on stage or get into the building or get to the meeting I'm trying to go to?
It's
So,
that, and when you have a disease and a condition, you're dealing with your physical anxiety and stress levels. Like, am I gonna get an episode when I'm here? Am I gonna suddenly stop breathing? Is like, just this, and then as well, the social aspect. Like, are people gonna respect me, accept me? Are they just gonna stare at me? Like, how many stares am I gonna get this time? Um, will a kid, when I'm at the store, loudly say something embarrassing about me when everybody's there? Which has happened, and I've gone to the parents and been like, excuse me, your child said this, and I think that you should teach your child, that this is not okay. And parents have gotten mad at me. They've been so aggressive towards me and defensive just because I said, excuse me, like, can you teach your child that this is not okay? And, it's crazy, Troy. I swear. When I'm with a sea of, when I go to events, I'm literally, and I'm not joking, the only differently abled person there. So many times this has happened to me. I always look and see, hey, am I gonna see somebody like myself? Nope, it's just not me. And a sea of able bodied people. And sometimes it's like, wow, like it's crazy to me. And it's then when I realize what I'm doing or what I attempt to do, I should be proud of myself because a lot of people like myself don't get out there and aren't that brave to face all these hardships and scrutiny and stigma and a lot of times verbal, injustices and in terms of actions and verbally being unjust to me. So it's a lot to deal with, but I mean, just keep
yeah,
going.
yeah. I guess, I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? Yeah, I guess I've never really shared this with you, but um, well, I don't know. Did you know that? Oh, I got denied for disability recently. Yeah,
Really?
I was going for disability for a couple reasons. One is even before my ex-wife took her own life, I had taken short-term disability multiple times for mental stress, and I was breaking down. And then in 2018, my ex-wife took her own life, and I put on a brave face and I went to work, and I went to go take short-term disability again, being like, man, I need some time. Like, I mean, literally, my mom killed herself in 2016, and then my ex-wife, I found her floating dead in my hot tub in 2018, and then I went back to work on Monday. Like, what are you doing here on Monday? But then I went to go take my 2 days bereavement. I took a third day. And they're like, why aren't you here on the third day? I'm like, I have vacation time. Can I just burn a little vacation time? I wasn't quite ready to come back after 2 days of bereavement. Sorry. And then I worked for like 6 months or so, 4 months, 6 months. And then COVID started to come down. We started working from home. And then Robert Half decided to do layoffs. But I had actually gone into the thing and said, hey, I want to take 6 months off. And they laid me off before I took instead of they got my short-term disability and then didn't respond. And the next thing I heard from them was I got a letter in the mail saying, mail back your laptop because you were laid off. Not a single phone call, nothing. So as much as I love Robert Half, and it really was the best company I ever worked for, they did me real dirty when they quit. But ever since then, I've never been able to hold down a full-time job. I did for a little bit at a hotel. I think I lost that job in a couple of weeks. And so I work these temporary jobs to get from place to place, or now I'm becoming my own CEO, kind of like you. Like, well, I
Mhm.
really can't work for somebody else, so I'm just going to work for myself and do it myself, instead of trying to earn my way through somebody else's company or fit in that area. I already spent enough of my life doing that and took enough brunt and hardship from it. And I have my suicide scars to go with it. And so I went into
I'm
so I was
sorry.
going for disability because I haven't worked a full time job since 2019. So it's been now 7 years I haven't worked a full time job. And since then, my mental state has gotten better. But it wasn't but maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I was standing in at work and I would just break down in tears, and I couldn't even finish my shift. And I was hiding. And then from there, I also had extreme hypermobility and inflation in my joints. So I look all big and strong or whatever. That's only because I work out 3 to 4 hours a day doing painful standing meditations just to get my joints not to come apart. And I have a decompensated liver, so I can't take any medication. So I just got my denial, and I was like, of course, they just deny everybody the first time. I'm like I literally like, how long do I have to not work for you to finally be like, maybe there's something wrong with this guy? I already have two short-term disabilities on my list, and a third one that was approved but never activated. And now I haven't worked for 7 years. They still deny me. And then so now I feel like so I do these gig jobs because if I go to a gig job and I break down in tears and I leave, then they block me. They don't want me back. That's fine. But if I have to go through weeks and months of a hiring process to just lose the job in a week because I couldn't control my emotions at work, that's screwed up. Now the mental side is really hard to prove because it's super, a non-visible disability. But then I even gave them all my medical stuff. I'm like, I'm also not able to stand like this. I went to go work to uh, to the reason I was over in the Astoria area was I picked up a job when I left Lake Oswego to go re-merchandise a Walmart. And so Monday night I worked from 10 p.m. till I was supposed to work till 7 a.m. in the morning. And so I'm walking around in steel-toed boots, lifting heavy objects, and they're paying really well, like 22 something dollars an hour. No shot at Walmart or even Instawork or I normally get shots at. But I was working there, and man, by about 4:30 in the morning, I was just in tears, and there's no ability to sit down on the job. You're standing on cement, lifting stuff the entire time. I could think that they gave me my breaks, they did everything right, but so I got through to the second break, and then by about 5:15, something like that, I'm like, I just have to go lay down, and so hey, I'm like thankful I got paid 6 hours, and I got a little bit of sleep, and we're recovering and stuff. But now I've been hurting for 2 or 3 days. But then sometimes I can get these jobs where it's like I've actually had jobs where I can sleep at the job for that matter, where it's 15 hours for 30 something dollars an hour that lets me take breaks and naps, and I'm not on my feet the entire time. Hey, I can probably do that. But now they deny me. So it's really hard though. Every time I take these jobs where I could practically lift a car, my resting strength is insane, but my ability to maintain that for an 8-hour shift is highly compromised. And so I can only take 2 to 4 hour shifts if they're heavy physical. Otherwise, I'm going to probably have to leave before the end of the shift, and I'm probably going to be in pain for 2 to 3 days later. So I get anxious every time, and then I have to make up an excuse. Or this time I just told them my back hurts. Like I can't do it, but I have to pretend like I got hurt there because I technically shouldn't be taking the job if I couldn't stand for 8 hours and do that. But when the government won't approve my disability, then I have to essentially say, yeah, of course I can land. I can stand for 8 hours and lift 25 pounds constantly. I can sometimes. And so I don't have to leave every shift, but this one I did. But it's stressful to either have to leave. It's mental or physical that can get me on a job. I never know what shape I will be in either way. Anytime I go to do anything.
I know. I mean, it's difficult dealing with these government benefits. I know when I had it, they would every year. I don't know if you guys know this, but every year they want to recheck to see if you're still disabled, and it's like, yo, the disease I have is not going away. There's no cure for it, and it's ridiculous for every year to check if I'm still disabled when I've clearly said this is a lifelong disease and it's a genetic disease. So they say these ridiculous things and these ridiculous conditions and regulations and rules, but I don't know. Isn't that weird? What do you think, Troy?
Yeah, and for me, I was diagnosed with AUDHD later in life. I was never really fully diagnosed, but then also they're like, "Well, what therapist are you going to?" I'm like, "For what? You cannot therapy my way out of this." And so I'm like, and my mind got better when my body's got better when I stopped seeing doctors, and my mind got better when I stopped seeing therapists. I went to therapy for 20 years, and they're like, "Oh, you're not going to therapy now? Why not?" Because it doesn't. There's nothing to fix necessarily. Like it's you can't talk your way out of a disability. What am I gonna do? Like that'd be like them sending you to physical therapy, being like, well, you need to go to physical therapy so you can go back to your construction job. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm never going to be that.
That is
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, and I swear, I'm going to be so successful as a CEO. By the time they give me disability, I'm going to be. It's like they're going to give me my disability check and then cancel my disability same day, even if they give me disability, because they're like, okay, now you make too much. I'm like, "Yeah, I probably
Yeah,
should have
I
been.
mean, hmm
I was gonna say I probably should have been on this my whole life, but I masked because that's what us autistic people do. Is we mask to fit into society and try to act the part of what everybody wants us to do, which is damaging to our psyche because we're not allowed to be ourselves. And then, but your ability to mask then precludes you from getting disability. And then once you do figure out how to deal with it, then they're like, "Oh, see, you were fine the whole time." Like, well, not
yeah.
really.
I mean, the check isn't even that much.
Yeah,
So it really doesn't do much good for you, honestly. And if you work at the same time, they won't allow it. They'll cut it. And
right.
there are these weird, unrealistic things that they place on disabled people in terms of the benefit, which does not make sense. It's under for Washington. It's under $1,000. The disability SSI benefit. It's like, how am I supposed to rent a place, pay for my bills, have food, clothes under $1,000? And even if I try to increase my income by working, maybe part time, and have the disability check, that's not allowed, really. To an
Mhm.
extent, I think they do, but at the same time, they'll decrease it extensively. So it's no benefit in that sense as well. See, that's what they see. That's how they see disabled people, as nothing. And nobody, like, not someone who is a active citizen in society that goes out, that lives life. It's probably they're inside their homes doing nothing, and under $1,000 is enough for them because we know they have somebody that's caring for them, and most of them can't even handle their financial responsibilities. It's someone else, so they don't really need
Mhm.
that much for support. It's crazy. And the caregiving situation, I think we talked about this, Troy, not on here but over the phone maybe. But in Washington, you can't your spouse can't be a caregiver and get paid for it. That's not allowed. But if they were your, boyfriend, girlfriend, they can get paid for it, but not a spouse. Isn't that crazy?
So if I move to Washington, I have to divorce Audrey. So, uh,
Yeah, if she's a caregiver for you. That's crazy. They're like, oh, well, it's their responsibility to care for you as a spouse. Which I get it, but it's not in that regard. It's having somebody to be there for you, to care for you. That's why they can't go out and work. That's why they need that benefit from the whatever agency company that is caring as the caregiver for them. But I don't know. It's weird.
well,
It's
I think you're touching on a much bigger subject is the the strain that well, and then that puts extra strain on us, but the strain that we are to the people around us, our families and stuff, that they were expected to take care of us, and then it's like then you start, then you feel worse about yourself because then they're struggling and stuff like that. I know for me, when I met Audrey, I was like, man, I'm so broken. Like, why did you want to marry me? Like
uh,
she was, I was. We, we were barely married 6 months. Well, I was already pretty broken when she met me, but I was in the hospital, like potentially with the conversation of I might die and or not be able to walk for the rest of my life. And I mean, she's a saint, but I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then to hear what you're saying is she wouldn't even be able to get paid to be able to be my caregiver, even as I couldn't move. And it's like,
yeah, it's crazy because I mean there are family members that don't do it even when they say, oh, it's their responsibility to just care for you. Well, there are family members that don't do that, and I've experienced that, and it's heartbreaking, because not everyone does what they're supposed to do as a sibling, sometimes even as parents. And
mhm.
so then what do I do in that regard? So,
Oh
so
God, I couldn't even imagine my parents taking care of me. My parents didn't barely take care of me when I was a kid. I was a disabled adult. Oh my God. I think I was, I was picked up by his CPS in kindergarten because I was crying because I had locked my clothes in that house. I used to, the neighbors were concerned because I spent so much time home alone in kindergarten.
yeah,
6 years old. I was a latchkey kid by 6 years old, and I was walking a mile and a half to kindergarten. And he was like, "Here, kick a can on the way." I'm like, "Okay." And then my parents wouldn't come home till 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then I guess I don't
Wow.
know. I've never really talked about my parents with you. Yeah. So then, my dad was very verbally and emotionally abusive, especially to my mom. And so then she was just upset and angry. And so she would come home and just immediately get high and drunk and be passed out on the couch within an hour or two. So I had basically no relationship growing up with my mom. And then my dad was charismatic. Everybody loved him. But I was like, you try living with that guy. You know, uh, my mom's family hated him and stuff. Both my parents were the black sheeps of their family. So we had no family support either. So I just kind of grew up out there on this island where I wasn't allowed to have emotions. Mental health wasn't allowed to be talked about. That's why I never got diagnosed with any of my physical ailments, with any of my mental ailments. I didn't even realize it wasn't until 18 that I went to apply for the military, and the military was like, you have like bone spurs on the bottom of your feet, and you're massively colorblind. You have no depth perception. You're missing 40% of your hearing. And I was like,
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know any different. I'd never been diagnosed. And so I wanted to be, I grew up wanting to be an astronaut or a pilot. And they said, you'll never, I was going to be a fighter pilot because I wanted to serve in my military family. And I wanted to be an astronaut. And not exactly the scientific type. Well, not for things that matter. I'm pretty scientific about the wrong things. But as far as like, the hard sciences were never people sciences is more my thing. I could be an astronaut and be a scientist studying the people that are on a long space mission. That would be perfect. I'd love that. But as far as doing the hard sciences and stuff, that was my thing. So I wanted to be a captain. I figured if I was the pilot, then I could do that. And I figured I should go be a fighter pilot first because that was the easiest way to get into NASA to fly a space shuttle. And they're like, you'll never be a pilot. You're not even close. I was like, man. So I never went to the military. This actually this is my first tattoo. This is patriotism actually, and this is living a life your parents would be proud of. So it's
mhm.
together and kanji characters. That's the way a man should live his life. That's how I grew up. Was patriotism, make your parents proud. Don't show emotions. I was allowed to have a cabbage patch kid, cabbage patch
Wow.
doll when I was a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
now,
mm,
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say after, you had that experience and relationship with your parents, it seemed like you still wanted to make them proud, right? Of
Mhm,
you and please them in a way.
mhm.
Because, I mean, I don't know, is that the reason why you got the tattoo? In honor of or resembling connecting to them somehow? Because if that was me, I'd be like, nothing.
Right.
Act like they don't exist. Because I don't know, when you're just okay, guys, it hurts for anyone to be treated that way by your parents or any human being, but it's 100 times worse when you're disabled because you feel like the weight of the world is already on your shoulders. You already feel like you don't fit in. And then to have your family members neglect you and treat you like strangers do, that doesn't just hit your soul in terms of pain, it reaches the core of your existence. Past any soul, heart, mind, like it goes so deep that is unexplainable, the pain. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of that person that's like, F you if you screw me over in that way, being in this condition. I think I would be much more forgiving if I was able bodied, because I would have a lot of ease in my life. But the people around me, they've seen me suffer. They've seen all the near deaths. For instance, me, broken bones, just so many dark days, and then for you to treat me like this on top of it, it's like, how can I forgive you? Like, I don't know. So that was a long tangent in that topic, but so back to you. Is that why you got the tattoo? In
No,
honor of
all my person, all my. I have two tattoos, and they're deeply personal to me. They're they're expressions of who I want to be visually. So, being being a man and patriotism was big to me. So when I saw the tattoo combined, I like that, and I have a huge angel on my back also to remind me, why I'm here on this planet to help people. So no, my tattoos are very deeply personal to me. Well, and I think you have to remember I'm an Aries, and an Aries is insanely self-centered to start with. So everything is all about me, definitely. But I wanted to say something about what you were saying. So you're disabled and you're growing up, and everybody watches you suffering. Well, so for me, I was disabled growing up, and nobody could see my suffering. Nobody understood.
I know.
And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
yeah.
I can't
So,
imagine.
but like, I don't know. Like, it feels inauthentic to talk about it because it really wasn't as bad as some people. But also, we are all suffering on the inside, and nobody understands the other person's pain and point of view and stuff like that. And but yeah, no, I grew up with the burden of perfection, and so like I was propped up. I had to be perfect uh, because my parents were the black sheep. So then it was my success was proof that they did something right in their life.
Wow.
And so there were benefits to it, like say when I worked at Verizon. My mom worked at Verizon since I was in high school, basically, when it's GT MobileNet. And so even like the regional presidents were like, "Oh, you're Sheila's son. We've heard all about you." She was my biggest cheerleader. And actually, my ex-wife was my cheerleader too. So it's like, no matter who ran into me from what channel, they had all heard about Troy, which works for me being an Aries, like I said. we're, we're quite all about ourselves. But yeah, I don't
Hmm.
know. I think everybody struggles in their own way. And it was that upbringing that I think of things as a rubber band sometimes, where I had no empathy and stuff like that, and was all one way, and then I just snapped back the other way. So that's why my dad was homophobic and wouldn't allow people to show emotions or men to show emotions, right? Um, and so for me, I flipped to the other, and he was very misogynistic, right? And so for me, I flipped to the other way to being a feminist, all about empathy, all about feelings, and very expressive of my feelings on purpose, because that's what, when I was going to recreate myself after my ex-wife died, I wanted to recreate myself as a new person. That's how I ended up in that prolonged dissociative state being Tyler, is pushing myself to be somebody completely different, somebody I chose instead of what I was raised. And so the underlying the underlying conversation of my life is proving that I'm better than my parents. And then later with Tyler and all that in my early 40s was rejecting everything that my father had taught me and tried to ingrain into me. So it's more of a one-upping and then total rejection, not trying to necessarily please them. But I was, essentially kicked out of the house at 18. But that's okay. I kicked my kids out at 18 too. That wasn't the worst thing ever. It kind of sucked. I went back to his house at one point, and I had been out of work for a while, and I moved back in with the kids to try to restart into a new career after I had left technology and stuff. And after living there for a couple months, I was like, I can't deal with that, with the noise in the house, this and that. And he wrote me this letter. I wish I had saved the letter now, about how him getting kicked out at 18 was probably the best thing for him, and hopefully I'll see it someday that it was better for me to go out and be homeless in my 20s, that I had to be out by that weekend or something like that.
Could we
And so,
pause there, Troy, just to quickly say, could we pause at that statement? I feel like, because I get that a lot too. The people who have made us suffer kind of boast about it because we ended up being strong and outgoing and somewhat, successful. And they want credit for that because they're like, oh, we made you strong. And it was because of us, the tough love, and you are the person that you are today and have all this success. But it's like why? I didn't have to go through that. Why, on top of, for instance, me and you having a disability, an invisible disability, and then putting us through all of that as well. Like, you're not in our bodies, you don't know what we go through on a daily basis, and then to amplify the pain and hardship with tough love. And I don't know, I don't know, it's crazy. Is it excuse, or are we truly happy about the tough love? And because in my experience, the cup of tea story, right?
mhm.
A family member of mine literally said, the person that didn't give you tea is smart. They're so smart for doing that to you, because if they didn't, you wouldn't have gotten to where you are today. And, they told me, you should actually thank me or thank them for doing that to you.
Oh,
What?
I, I mean, I respond back to somebody and go, if I punch you in your face right now, it may be the best. If I beat you within an inch of your life right now, that could change your whole perspective. So I should just punch you in your face right now, right? So that way it could make you such a better person. So I'd be
Yeah.
excused to punch you in your. I'll do it right now. So yeah, I think that that's inauthentic, especially how they're saying it. That person, no, the person's just an ass, and so were the people around them. I was just talking about that the other day. I was like, it's like when people don't. Oh, it was about it was a LinkedIn post about, was it Dolly Parton and Reba McEntire, and about how other artists should be like them. Springsteen, Fallon, they called out a few different people. Taylor Swift, maybe. That's one of their favorite people to go after. And Dolly Parton says that, no, I don't ever talk about politics. I don't think it's my place as an entertainer. And I don't want to offend. I don't want to, I have all kinds of different fans and I don't want to offend anybody. And then Reba said something about that. It's my job to entertain and not to be political. And I'm like, no, when you see evilness in the world, you are not as guilty as the person who did it, but it's in the same vein. You owe it to society and to that person to stand up if you're a good person. Oh, Dolly, I know, does amazing things. I'm sure Reba does too, if that's who that was in that post. I don't remember, um, but no, you if you have a platform, you should say it. But even if you are a human, not only is it wrong that that person didn't give you a cup of tea, it is also wrong for every single person in that room. Shame on them. No, they shouldn't. And so, I try to sometimes say, all the experiences that made me, or all the experience that I had made me who I am today, and I wouldn't change who I am today because I am the happiest I could ever been. But at the same time, you can't say, no, I wouldn't thank that person for it. And anybody who says something like that, I would say it just like that. I would go, well, if I punched you in your face right now, it may be the best thing that ever happened to you. So I'm allowed to just punch you in the face, right? And I'm not a small human. It will hurt. I promise you.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they truly, like I said, are prideful of that tough love, or it's just a defense mechanism for regret because of how much they put us through, and they're just trying to deflect or, ignore their poor actions and their wrongdoings with that kind of pride that
Yeah.
we make you strong. So I don't know what it is exactly. It can be both, right?
It can be both because, sometimes it's revisionist history saying, oh, I showed you tough love because you needed it at the time. And sometimes it's just because you're a jerk. But, I was intentionally tough on my kids. I was probably overly tough on my kids, but there were times that I just made mistakes, and there were times that I was tough on them for their own good. So it's hard to judge other people's intentions for it, but some of them are so inauthentic that no, if you did something wrong, there's nothing right about doing something wrong, even if it turns out to something good later on accident. Now, I'm an ends justify the means kind of person. If you did something intentionally that potentially looked bad at the time, that had the right intentions to come out good in the end, let's have that conversation then. Let's talk about that. But if you just carelessly hurt me or just hurt me to make yourself feel better, that's inexcusable regardless, because I think your intentions in the time mean more than the outcome, even though the outcome means more than the action. See what I mean? Like, so when you say like an ends justify the means, I'm like, your intentions are what justify the actions, unfortunately, and you'll be judged by your actions, not by the outcomes. In the end of the
Mhm.
day, yeah. But I think you're really judged by your intentions, and so yeah. So I would walk it back to an intention that before you think about thanking people or want to take credit for tough love or something. I sat down there very. I mean, maybe because I'm autistic, now I think about a lot of the weird things that I did. You know, I like sat down and I thought about what kind of kids I wanted my kids to be, what kind of adults I wanted my kids to be, and I worked backwards with how you create that person. Was I right about a lot of other stuff? Hell no. In fact, one of them took his own life, so I obviously must have gone somewhere horribly wrong in that. But when you look at it like and you make those I made those very intentional decisions, and so I had a lot of very like adult conversations with my ex-wife because she was a stepmom and she had never wanted to have kids and wasn't really a kids person, and she was real hard on him, like just like the evil stepmom would like want to be like on top of him. As beautiful as she was as a person, everybody loved her. My kids saw it, and they were not sad when she died. And I was like, that really says something. It's one thing to be upset at somebody. It's another thing to not shed a tear when the woman you lived with for 11 years dies and you don't even shed a tear over it like that, and you're unbothered. So She was obviously very hard, but I had to have conversations with her all the time saying, listen, my job is to make good people. How is what you're talking about, being hard on them, coming out to this outcome? I'm not here to make rule followers, doctors, lawyers, straight A students, clean houses, things like that. Sure, they need to learn responsibility. I want to have successful people who are good humans. Your actions need to be targeting that outcome. And if you're making a decision, and this is the way I do it, you've seen it inside my business. It's like, okay, well, okay, what were you trying to do? And what were the decisions that led you to that? And it's like, okay, well, maybe don't do that again, but I'm not gonna worry about the actions that you took when the intentions were right, that you were targeting the right target. And so I was very intentional about how I raised my kids, and I think they turned out to be pretty good humans. In fact, they're a lot better than me, so it's good. You got to make your kids better than you, right? But yeah, I think if you gave tough love with an intentional outcome, I think it's there. I told my kids, I kicked them out at 18. But it was, their mom was like, "Oh, that's so rude that he kicked you out at 18." They go, "I have known since I was 11 that I either needed to be getting good grades, paying rent, or getting out. And I made the choice to get out." Oh, okay. Right. So they took it very. So I guess my tough love wasn't fly off the handle, make a decision in the moment, yell at somebody, or do anything that was ever intentionally like dismissive like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Okay, we'll go a little higher. Let's go a little higher on that food chain. Well, what about worshiping God when you have had all these struggles in your life that God obviously heaped upon you? It,
So, is
it,
this
it,
my perspective or like a question?
your perspective, well, it's an unanswerable thing, but like if you're if you're going to hold if you're going to hold account your parents for what they did, well, isn't everybody's parents God at some point? And why? Why are we doing all this, right? Like, and then we have to worship that person or that being or that entity.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to tackle it. We come from very different approaches on that. Although I don't think they're as different as people like to make the world out to be. We still have some of the same prophets and such, but
Mm-hmm.
do you hold do you hold animosity towards your creator?
Um, there were times in my life where it wasn't animosity; it was just hurt. One time I I broke my bone the same place for the third time, and I was so hopeful and prayed so much to God that the coming year would be better for me. And then I broke it, and then I again was in excruciating pain, and I had to be in a cast for almost a year, 1 year. And so anytime I thought of God, I would just cry, because I felt like, I don't want to say this word, but I felt like my trust was kind of tarnished because I prayed so much, right? So it was never animosity, it was just pain from the expectation and the hope that wasn't a reality of life. Um, but then again, I feel like I trust personally, God, and I know that anything He wills, this is my personal opinion about God. Okay, so I'm not preaching to anyone, but I trust my God, and I know anything and everything He wills for me is for my um, good and the betterment of myself in this life and the next. And when it comes to human beings, there could be a possibility where it's just they're doing it out of animosity, right? Out of
Hmm.
pain, out of resentment, what they will upon me. But with God, it's not. It's God to me just wills for a better reason. But a human being, we're inherently to an extent ill willed and evil and terrible creatures, you know? And so that possibility is what I don't forgive, you know?
Yeah.
Because,
Well,
yeah,
I think your genetics you have you were saying could potentially be blamed on humans, not on God, right?
yeah, that's what the doctor said.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, mine lays squarely on the creator, and for me though, it's I have a little bit of a different approach because what's happened to me is bettering the lives of others. And so I have to take it very much of I think I told you I'm like I'm a hammer, and so uh but does a hammer need to like being a hammer and hitting nails all day long? You know what I mean? And so I think that I'm making the world better and God uses me for that purpose. And I would have volunteered, so I guess it's maybe that's my own way of being. But like, yeah, I have a different approach to it. But yeah, I guess if your physical ailments could potentially be more of a human issue than God, then that's thing. It's kind of like Susie actually. Susie, my blind aunt, she was put into an incubator with too much oxygen, so they burned out her eyes. She wasn't born blind. So yeah, I wonder if that gives you maybe a different perspective. Less blame, but I think, like I said, we all suffer, and we were talking about that tough love. Another thing I wanted to wrap back around to from that was that if you make your kids' lives too easy, um, then they end up without the resilience that me and you have. And I talked about that before with you, is that you have a lot more resilience than a lot of people your age or of any age because of that struggle. And when they talk about the youth of today having a lower happiness quotient or whatever than even the people in Auschwitz, because there's no getting out of it when you're just unhappy, and there's no reason you're unhappy necessarily, and you have a whole lot of first world problems, but they hurt just as much. Um, so I
I
think
would,
you have to be, yeah.
sorry for interrupting. I just
Oh, yeah.
want to quickly add like, when we say, I am who I am today because of what I experienced, right? I give that credit to God, not the people around me. And personally, like, I I wouldn't have survived this disease or being differently able without God and my religion. That's the only sense I had of my life, and the only, positive thing in my life and hopeful thing, because everything and everyone around me from the outside and within my close knit family made me feel inhuman. I felt like I was just a sad story, no hope, no expectation of success, and I can't do and have what others have, other able-bodied people have in their life or do. So I turned to my religion and to God, and honestly, that saved me. So anything that I am today, or the strength and who Renahi is, it's all due to God. Like, I thank and praise God. And I don't mean to get religious, but this is who I am, and I
That's good.
can't explain who I am. Only a part of of me. I have to say the whole story. But yeah, right now, Troy, and whoever is listening, the people around me get upset at me and say, "You are who you are today, and you have what you have because of us." And when I say, "No, I'm not," and it isn't because of you guys, it's because of God and myself, they get even more pissed off. Which is like, it's so frustrating, because if I listened to the people around me, I don't think I would be here today. Literally. Because to
Uh,
mentally go through physical pain and then mentally go through pain and just be a sad story and constantly being said you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't, have a spouse and kids, you're disabled. You can't go and drive a car, you're disabled. You can't do this, you're disabled. Or like, that's not a thing for you. That you can't just do normal human things because you're disabled. It's like, then what do I like? What's life worth? You know, like, how do I find that courage and the other parts of who I am? So yeah, I
yeah,
give credit and
that's
thanks.
perfect. It's good. And, I'm starting to believe a lot divinity within ourselves and that light that's inside of each of us. And so I'm glad that guides you and has given you the strength to be here. So, as we start to wrap up for the week, I think next week we're going to be a little late, right? We'll probably do it Thursday, I think, because me, and Audrey will be at Microsoft, right, for the Ability Summit.
If we can make it happen, yeah.
Good. So, shout out to Microsoft for the Ability Summit. Sadly, they were sold out. We're trying to get me and Renai in. If anybody has pull over at Microsoft, send me a couple of those codes so I can get me and Audrey in there. But I look forward to hearing about it. If nothing else, and I'll watch live on the stream or something.
I
And
hope
any other closing words for? We actually have 2 people joined us live. I think it's our first time having live people. So,
yeah,
thank you
thanks
to
for joining.
everybody who joined. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I will attempt to switch over to our closeout music, and I will see you in a couple days.
Okay. Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.